In today's top stories, a man in his early 20s failed to strike up a conversation with a gorgeous redhead wearing a floral dress as he made his way back from the neighborhood supermarket. When asked why he consciously chose not to approach the young lady, he said a strange anxiety had suddenly gripped him, and for that brief moment, he was unable to form any rational thoughts. This is one of many instances that have been recently reported where healthy men of all ages claim to have been paralyzed by an unfamiliar fear upon seeing a beautiful woman. Scientists are now investigating this strange phenomenon, but pending further developments, we will all just have to pray for our safety. Yes, approach anxiety. We need to talk about it. Because I can't bear the thought of guys squandering any more potential opportunities to get laid. It's unfair to you, to your penis, and your genes. Okay, so what is it and where does it come from? Well, it's a product of a few things. Number one, evolutionary wiring. Evolutionary psychology suggests that in much the same way that natural selection has provided humans with anatomical and physiological adaptations, it has helped us develop psychological ones as well. The anxiety you start to feel when you think of approaching an attractive girl can first and foremost be described as an adaptive trait that had evolved to save your male ancestors from being killed or ostracized by higher status tribe members. Tens of thousands of years ago, within every tribal community, a certain hierarchical order prevailed. This hierarchy had to be respected in order to ensure group cohesion and long-term survival. In any given situation, we always think of our immediate environment as the tribe, whether it's the classroom, the street, or a coffee shop. And so that unpleasant anxiety you feel is essentially the raw, primal sensation of our instincts telling us painfully that we are rising above our rank, that we are challenging the status quo. It makes us think that we'll embarrass ourselves, be found out, and be put back in our place. The evolutionary advantage of this rejection sensitivity was that it made individuals more compliant to the agendas of leaders and group members. God forbid you tried to engage a woman who was already spoken for by one of the higher status tribesmen. Our ancestors would not want to find themselves clubbed or worse, banished from the tribe and exposed to all sorts of dangers. I mean, you don't want some fucking mammoth stomping you to death, all right? Of course, another element of this evolutionary wiring is simply the ability to exercise caution in the face of the unknown. Evolutionary stable strategies that were more conservative in the long run typically prevailed. And so the anxiety many men experience when wanting to approach a woman is, to some degree, simply the challenge of dealing with an unfamiliar situation. Number two, social conditioning. Some of it is universal. We grow up being told not to talk to strangers, to mind our own business, to be polite. We're told that first impressions are crucial, that we need to be normal, to fit in. And all of this holds a grain of truth. But we're also misled into thinking that money, looks, and status are key to winning a woman's heart, that the process of love has some defined set of rules and standards. And so not only are we worried that we might be bothering someone, but that we, or our approach, are inadequate. Some of the social conditioning is cultural. Countries in Europe and North America, for example, tend to be more individualistic, liberal, and egalitarian, while many countries in Central Asia and the Middle East are more conservative and patriarchal. I imagine it would be pretty tricky trying to pick up girls in Iran or Saudi Arabia. Having said that, I can't pretend like our freedoms in the West aren't at risk when feminists are consistently trying to blur the lines between what is pickup and sexual assault. Countries like those in East Asia are more hierarchical and harmony-oriented, in which direct confrontation and open criticism are generally avoided. While both East Asian and Latin American countries can be considered collectivist, the former group typically maintains harmony by promoting withdrawn submissive behaviors, whereas the latter embraces high sociability. I mean, you look at some of these Asian fobs in North America, and for whatever reason, they always look afraid. I don't know what they're afraid of, but they're always walking around with this, what I call the face of fear. Some of the social conditioning is more specific to the experiences you had and the environment you grew up in. Books you've read, shows you watched, conversations you had with your friends and parents. Maybe your cousin was very successful with girls and happened to drive a BMW. Perhaps that would have led you to some conclusions. Maybe you tried hitting on a girl one night at a bar and some guy sarcastically remarked, "Good job, man, you're making a great impression." Good job, man, you're making a great impression. Leaving you absolutely traumatized. Maybe your friend got beaten up by some girl's possessive ogre boyfriend simply for talking to her. In any case, all these things in aggregate help shape our worldview. I used to watch films like Good Will Hunting and think, maybe I could be this brilliant mathematician and some hot British girl would just fall in love with me and remedy my wounded soul. Number 3, situational state of mind. Another big part of the anxiety you feel has to do with the headspace you happen to be in at that particular moment. Are you sad, happy, stressed, in a rush, burdened with random thoughts? Have you been social or sitting isolated in front of the monitor for days? So what happens is when you want to talk to a girl, you suddenly have to shift gears to muster up the nerve and push yourself into a social, positive headspace. The thought of this alone can only add to the anxiety. In conclusion, what are we left with? Well, next time you're flirting with the idea of approaching a girl and are crippled with feelings of inadequacy, a weak state of mind, and fears of rejection, just drown it all with a lot of alcohol. I recommend carrying around a flask for the sake of convenience. Just kidding. Join me next time for some honest insights on how to cope and learn to manage your anxiety.